give you adequate time to ask those.
Yeah, feel free to take notes on your phones, no problem with that. And a few other things, like while we are here, this is the site. I mean, of course, the team has done a wonderful job to make it safe, but it is still an active site. There might be screws and this and that. You guys are all construction people already. Nevertheless, please be safe and please exercise caution. We want you guys to get the most out of it, so I think we will be sharing this presentation at the end, the training presentation. We will be asking for feedback to improve it. The more tangible you can make the feedback, you can say, hey man, speak less, do more, whatever you think to help us make it better for future. But in general, we do want you guys to get all your questions answered at the end of it.
So put your phones on silent for a few minutes and we'll...
And please feel free to take notes and questions. And take pictures too as it comes along to jog your memory. Let's jump in. The quick agenda, we will go through everybody here. We'll talk about LIVIO panels, connections. We'll talk about the LIVIO mobile app, physically play with it for some time, and get set up for the actual construction right here, and then clean up and certificates and so on. Right? Along the way, we should have plenty of time for Q&A. All right, so the vision for LIVIO is to create a building system, and I'm carefully using the word building system. I'm not saying framing system. I'm not saying metal framing system or anything else. I'm saying LIVIO is a building system. The vision for the company of what we are trying to accomplish is to provide a building system that enables 75% or in the range of that labor time savings on the job site. In multiple different trades. Today, what you see is what we're delivering saves a bunch of time using pre-assembled metal framing in the framing step directly. That's what we deliver today. But where we are going, some of you were looking at some of those prototype panels in the back corner, and we will talk a little bit more about that as we go along, is to be able to do pre-assembled plumbing, some electrical, pre-install windows in certain cases, install a bunch of exterior layers, and that's the direction of the company. With each step that we take on, we want to be able to move the needle significantly, both in terms of the time it takes to complete the construction work on the job site, as well as in terms of precision and the quality of what has been delivered, so that you can with confidence build the project that you're trying to build, saving a lot of time and labor hours and carrying costs associated with the projects as developers. This will get a little bit into how we do things. So as we work with you on any given project, let's say the architectural plans and the structural plans come to us, and assuming that we are in contract to build it, our sales team estimates and puts together upfront, puts together what it's going to cost us for you guys. And as a result of that, and part of that is a bunch of specifications which we give you that, hey, we would request CAD files or even better 3D models from you guys on your project of structural plans and architectural plans. There could be nuances where you have given a structural plan, you don't have structural plans, and we can potentially do some framing plans for you guys as well. So there are some nuances there, but I'll skip over that. And assuming you have MEP drawings as well, there are cases where we can do clash detection and coordination with your MEP plans as well. So bottom line is, from an engineering perspective, we have the capabilities to do structural modeling, extensive BIM modeling for MEP as well, and using that, identify the issues that are potentially going to happen on the job site. But at the very minimal, at the very basic level, you want to make sure that your architectural plans and structural plans are aligned. Often we have seen that the door openings specified by the architect are different from the door and window schedule that you have, right? That's a basic example of a typical issue that can happen on the job site. More egregiously, the door header provided by the structural engineer is much deeper and comes much lower than the big La Cantina door or the big door that you have ordered and it's already on site. That's a much more costly issue on the job site. So we can find and identify those clashes up front before even we do any manufacturing, right? So that's the big part of the technological advantage. At heart, we are an engineering company. We love the construction space, and we believe we can create something of meaning and value to our customers. But at the end of the day, we are a very, very strong engineering team. We have about 50 engineers on our payroll doing lots of different things between structural modeling, production shop drawings, automation engineering, and of course fabrication drawings and so on. Let's move on. All right, so it's about Lego-like instructions that we generate. We have been truly inspired by Legos. I mean, most of us grew up playing Legos, and one of the very first things that we did about 2.5, 3 years ago when we got into producing pre-assembled metal buildings was this idea that, hey, if 5-year-old kids can assemble Taj Mahal, as complex a structure as Taj Mahal, by following pages in a book of Legos, just one page at a time, can we do something similar? And that's what has truly been the inspiration. This is right, and you can see that we have really tried to create something very similar. So what you're looking at here, each page in the LIVIO mobile app, and we will go through it today. It will show you where exactly the panel goes, how it will be connected, what each connection would look like, with the foundation as well as with the other panels as well. All the connections will be called out very, very, very visually, and we'll work through it today ourselves in the mobile app. Let's go ahead, Phil. Thank you. Ultimately, the whole what we generate and what we provide as a result of that Lego-like erection sequence. And by the way, the Lego-like erection sequence serves multiple purposes. We are trying to virtually construct the entire building in a virtual development environment. So as you can imagine, we are standing each panel, panel by panel by panel, and understanding each connection, how panels fit with the foundation, but with each other, how do the floor panels sit on top of the wall panels, what are the connections, and all of that is being realized and understood. All connection issues are being sorted out so that those issues do not happen on the job site. So one of the huge reasons we do this is to identify and resolve all constructability issues on the job site, which would otherwise, every issue, as you know, would result probably in a change order or would probably result in time loss on the job site. As a byproduct of that, we generate and we deliver that step-by-step erection sequence to you in the mobile app, and you can use it, your crews can use it in the field, one page at a time to stand the building. The mobile app itself is something which we have been developing in-house and will continue to develop it. There are some large project management features which are in the works, which will come out, whereas for a large job you can see daily reports and things like that, which we can go into a little bit later as well. But that's the whole idea of the Lego-like erection sequence. So here is just a quick overview. Like some of you asked, we manufacture in India. This was one of the strategic choices we made when we started manufacturing ourselves. We bought the assets of a company in Lenoir, Tennessee. Just some background and history if you guys care about. We have been developing in the Bay Area since 2013 as a real estate developer. Increase in 2017, we started our own construction company. But the goal for us was to drive efficiency in particularly one of the areas was framing, and we looked at panelized lumber. We also looked at panelized steel, but ultimately committed to panelized steel in 2019. Bought the assets of a company in Lenoir, Tennessee. They had been panelizing with steel for 10 plus years, 25 states, 250 projects of all kinds, hotels, resorts, affordable buildings, senior housing, all kinds of projects they had been doing in commercial and residential space. So we bought their assets, we shipped them to India, we brought on all the manufacturing software they had been developing. We took all of that, we acquired all of that, and we also brought on their executive team as consultants to us and so on. So we have been building upon whatever they were doing back then. We were very blessed to have them on our side and continue to develop on top of that. So today, still some members of that team are part of us, and they continue to lead how we develop the entire manufacturing software. India, I just want to talk a little bit more on India side. India gives us significant advantage. We as a company have been able to grow here significantly. We have been able to serve, we have been able to create more jobs effectively as a result of it. Our cost basis is significantly lower in manufacturing. India is a land of engineers, no guesses there. And we are very blessed to invest in R&D as a result of it. In every aspect of manufacturing and research that we need to. Packaging is a big deal, shipping is a big deal. There are specific site issues and logistics issues that I don't know if anybody has worked with anything panelized on any job site. Has anybody? You have? So what kind of panelization have you worked with on job sites? SIP panels, okay. So you have to deal with the logistics and coordination of getting it delivered to the job site. You would probably expect them to be delivered when you need them. You would hate it if it's too late. You would probably hate it if it's too soon as well, probably, because you have to deal with the site storage issues and logistics. So similarly, even though when you read the industry literature, everybody talks about how off-site and on-site can be married together and you can drive very high efficiencies. However, the reality is panelization with steel specifically, has been very small fraction of the total steel framing market because if you deliver it too soon, you have to deal with site logistics. You have to have things which are, if you have a bunch of panels just lying around, it will not only create complication for other trades to work who are working there, but also how do you store them? And later on, when you need to find them, how are you going to find them? You'll have to move a bunch of material to find the right components, which will slow you down and probably even damage the panels, right? So there are several issues which have hurt the so-called off-site, on-site partnership, and we believe our R&D teams are constantly ahead of it. They're solving it. There are lots of challenges which have been already solved. These LIVIO cubes that you're seeing over here, they essentially are vertically stackable. They hold exactly the panel in location where it needs to be as per the mobile app, as it was put in there after the QA/QC sign-off from the shop, from the factory floor in India. That location is not going to change. You can see it even 2 months later if you wanted to. So the whole point is you can lock and load the location of each component, each panel in a cube, in a packaging system where you can get it back from later on, and that allows you higher quality, precision, and no damages, and it's available to you whenever you want them, right? Theoretically, we can deliver much ahead of this project schedule and can be stored securely and safely for later on. So this is just a quick insight into how we, so there's a lot of R&D and engineering that goes behind. There's machine learning and automation work that we do, algorithmic work that we do to figure out how do we package these panels for not only shipping cost optimization. We want to not ship empty shipping containers, super expensive, but more importantly, we want to line them up in the order of constructability on the job site and the construction sequence on the job site. And that's the whole purpose of all the work that is done by the team here, is to create layouts, create the sequences that you can just go boom, 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 from left to right, following the LIVIO mobile app, whatever it says. Next panel, you should be able to get to it immediately and continue building with it. This is how when you talk about steel framing today and when people are manufacturing off-site or panelizing off-site, I mean, most of the steel framing today, by the way, how many people already frame with steel? Anybody? Okay, great. So you guys are familiar, you're mostly buying studs and tracks being delivered on the job site, and you guys are building one wall or one floor at a time, and just traditional, similar to traditional framing, right? When we are talking about panelized options today, they typically get delivered in this fashion. Now, nothing wrong against it, except that the issues that I just talked about, right, where you will have to find the panel at the bottom potentially later on, or you want to how do you get to it, what is the sequence, especially if it's being moved around and so on. Whereas our approach has been to package them in ways where each component is directly accessible and available to you based on the sequence in the mobile app, right? So for us, packaging is something we take very seriously because it has a significant impact on not just the product quality that is delivered, but also the time it takes ultimately to take things, which component to take on the 4th floor as quickly as possible and assemble them pretty fast. Here are some of the pictures. You guys can see it. You'll walk around and you'll see more. Even our packaging has been evolving continuously. Pretty much every shipment comes up with some other modifications and improvements based on the tight feedback loop that we have. Here is a quick video which shows how we can deliver on tight job sites. So there are some urban infill job sites where essentially there's no capability to unload from a shipping container. Most of the times we can unload on the back there, but however, on tight sites, LIVIO cubes would be brought in the back of a flatbed truck, can be delivered, and then they're ready to be installed as a part of the sequence. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about inverted bottom tracks. One of the questions that I'm sure some of you have is, how do you make sure that the panels will go in the right location? There are holes at the bottom of each of the wall panels, which which are designed with the help of these inverted bottom tracks, which are so inverted bottom tracks are tracks which are shipped well ahead of time during the concrete phase, so that, and it is template, these are essentially templates which get embedded in concrete. They're non-load bearing. They have enough space for the vibrator to go in, for the concrete guys to make sure there is no honeycombing, etc. that would happen. And as a result, each anchor bolt, each hold down, each plumbing penetration or any penetrations which are coming out of the concrete are in the exact location where you would expect them. Now this forces upfront work, but as a result of it, when the panels come, they would go exactly in the right location, and you will see the throughput that we talk about in order to achieve efficiency. Mobile app, I have talked about it a little bit. There's a section which is, I think, solely on the mobile app, so we can then play with it. All of us will spend some time moving around. I'll go around and I'll help everybody to be able to play with the mobile app. Has everybody downloaded it so far? I think no? Okay, it's okay. I'll bring up the QR code.
We'll do that during the presentation, so hold on that for now.
Yeah.
We'll cover it later.
Yeah, sounds good.
Is everybody on
we can
this
go
side
back.
able to see the screen?
You can come over here if you would
please
like,
come
if it's
in.
a little bit easier.
Yeah,
please
doesn't
proceed.
normally bite.
You want to go here or back? Which way?
We can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is again once again a quick demo video showing you how the mobile app will show you all the connections, vertical connections, horizontal connections, each type of screws that are needed, straps, any connection. The purpose of Livio mobile app is to give you on each panel basis exactly where it's going and how it's going to be connected, what screws, what connectors, page by page by page. And if you have any issues, you can report it. It can be resolved as a result of it faster as well. One of the things I want to talk about is our goal has been to make framing to be extremely straightforward. That mostly you should be using screw connections, fastened connections, or bolted connections. That's really one of the objectives for us. And as a result, one of the things we have is that we provide integrated cold form steel panels combined with structural steel HRS beams and columns, which are pre-punched, pre-drilled, pre-cut to size, and including welding pre-done from the factory in India. I don't know if there's a slide on certifications. Is there a slide? I'm forgetting, but I'll just talk about it right now. Whatever we ship is fully certified. So we have been working with ICC, IAPMO, and a bunch of other agencies. These inspection agencies, they have sent their inspectors to India, to our factory. We have to do multiple audits times a year. So the audits and the certifications that we have are based on two different things. One is the individual components that we are buying, whether we are buying steel or we're buying screws or we're buying insulation, whatever we are buying, and as we add more layers that we have talked about with plumbing and windows and so on, with every component that we take into our system, each of those components, we maintain individual separate certifications and traceabilities for them. We don't just take somebody's certification on face value and say, well, that's good, you have this. We have third-party agencies here in the US who audit it independently and give us their traceability approval that they have done their third-party analysis and they believe that everything that they see checks out, and that's the qualification criteria. Then many a times we also send them to third-party independent labs. These labs are accredited with ILAC. ILAC is it's an American institution which certifies third-party laboratories outside the country. They're called NABL labs. So we work with these different labs to do things like shear test or strength test and pull in, pull out of screws and various, whatever we care about in that context, we conduct these different kinds of tests and use all of that ultimately to decide if you're going to work with a vendor or supplier or not. These could be in India, they could be in China, they could be in Taiwan. Many a times these vendors, these manufacturers are already, most of the times in fact, they're already selling in the American markets. They are either supplying it to other people or directly selling in the US, and we work with them to acquire. So that's the first level of certification or gate check that we have. And then Livio's manufacturing itself is certified for lots of different things that they look for, our quality processes and a bunch of other things. So that goes on to what we are shipping We maintain UES certification for that. There are a bunch of other certifications we're working towards, including Miami-Dade hurricane rating. We'll be one of the only systems in a few weeks which will be rated for 195 miles per hour wind load and debris load to serve South Florida and the Caribbean markets pretty soon, and also applicable to Texas, many parts of Texas as well. The structural system, the structural steel, we are about to receive American Welding Society's approved fabricator status that will allow us to provide all that I talked about. We are basically, today we have Smith Emery as one of the inspection agencies who certifies every single beam that we deliver, every single structural component that we deliver, but we will have further certifications coming down that pike as well. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to talk at the end about certifications and so on. That probably brings me to an end. I will pass it on to Scott to talk about specifically our the parts and details of our framing system, and then we'll go from there. Thank you, Scott.
So I think one of the things we didn't cover though is our constantly changing product, right?
Evolving.
Always evolving. So how many of you here have worked closely with architects and engineers as part of the process, right? Raise a hand if you work with architects and engineers closely. Okay, so then you know that process, that to get engineers to minimize their design piece to get the most out of the building, they tend to be fairly conservative, right? So our generation 1, version 1 product that we're building right now are very robust buildings. They're thicker steel, more connectors, really, really robust. Let's say overly robust buildings, okay? Fair enough to say, right? But as we've worked with these buildings, and now we're getting to generation 1, iteration 4, our engineers are learning to be more elegant in their design, and we're using lighter weight steel instead of a shear panel that's a full sheet of
Steel
sheeting. We're using cross strapping instead of that, right? So you can imagine the end product is a lot easier to work with, and so that's the end goal, is to continue to lighten the structure and to continue to lighten the steel. It makes it easier to finish the building, easier for us to all work with the structure. We certainly want to continue to make a robust building, and it's one of the qualitative things that you're going to notice right away when you walk through these buildings. If you're used to working with wood and you walk through the steel building, you're going to feel right away how robust the building is. The floors are solid, right? Even in the newer generation buildings, they are very, very solid. When you sheathe them, they are resilient. So that's what to expect in the evolution. One of the reasons I'm bringing that up is we can talk about a lot of details about how the buildings are made, but what I want you to understand is the important thing is the LIVIO app. Because what the LIVIO app tells you what to do is how to make the connections in the steel. It literally tells you, here's the angle bracket and the number of screws that I want you to use. Just in my short tenure of working with LIVIO, we've already taken our angle brackets from a 10 or a 12-inch angle bracket down to a 6-inch angle bracket and reduced it from 12 screws down to 6 screws, for example. And we've reduced, right?
Yep.
And we've reduced the robustness of the steel to 14 or 16 gauge down to 18 and 20 gauge in many, many cases. So if you've worked with steel at all, you understand how big a difference that is, right? And when you're thinking about sheathing the building, right, that makes a big difference. So the exciting piece as a builder is working with this Lego-like material and working with an application that literally takes you through the building, just like your kid would be sitting on the table in front of you working with a Lego and turning it from page to page and working around the X-Wing fighter they're making, right? You're going to do the same thing with the building. So Navneet showed you how the inverted base track works and how your stabs are coming up through the concrete and they're all in the right location. When we fly in these panels, how we get oriented to the foundation and move through. So we can show you great amounts of detail about how the framing works, but this will all continue to evolve as LIVIO continues to evolve its product. So
One thing I would just like to add is that there are two kinds of projects which come to us. One, which have already been structurally engineered, and depending upon what your structural engineer has already engineered it, fully set of approved plans, we will manufacture for that, right? We will panelize and manufacture for that. The other kind of projects are where you may come to us earlier in the project life cycle and say, hey guys, we want you to help us with framing design, and that this could be during your planning approval phase, or you're just about to start your building phase. In that case, we can help design in an optimal way, essentially. There are some cases where we will not be the structural engineer. We don't want to be the structural engineer from a liability standpoint as a company. We are not a structural engineering company, we are a product manufacturing company, but we have the expertise, so we can partner with your structural engineer, and they can create the foundation plan. We can create the entire framing submittal set, including load calculations, layouts, and so on, and collaborate with them and help them submit. Most of the times, the concrete cost will go down by about 10 to 15% because light gauge steel structures are lighter. Therefore, the dead load is much lighter, and therefore your concrete cost goes down as well. Go ahead.
So how does this apply to you, and what does that evolution mean? Well, for example, right now we're looking at a product called Megaboard. It's an exterior sheathing material that has a sort of wood and cementitious type component to it. It's very robust for shear, and it can be used as an exterior sheathing material, right? Well, it has great shear capacity. So when you're working with an exterior building, you're probably accustomed in this region to using Den's glass, right? How many of you put Den's glass on the outside of a building, right? Pretty common application. Or you're first putting 1/2" struck one on the outside of the building in shear panels, and then furring out other pieces of it, and then turning around and putting Den's glass on the outside of that. What if we delivered the building already panelized with something that would work and cover both of those two things, right? So we are going to deliver it with the Megaboard that already covers your shear, and guess what? It's even more robust than struck one. It's like a 212 panel, like a two-sided 212 panel. So this is a very robust shear panel. We can achieve much higher calculable shear panel loads than you can with plywood. So this is the kind of stuff that we're working on. So if you're on the design side of it at all, if you're on the development side of it, or of the business, or talk to those people regularly, get them excited about this. This is a fun product to work with. And imagine you getting these panels coming to your site already sheathed, ready to go, or you just crane them right in and fly them into your pre-set up anchor bolts, drop them in, and you're off to the races.
The inspector will be okay? The inspector will be okay?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. They're all certified. These are all certified designs.
UES certification covers it. So everything that we will ship, you'll have a UES report for it.
We're also working with new code requirements, right? We all know that we now have to have drainable house wrap on this side of the Rockies. The next thing that'll be required is a drain mat. So, we've already moved to putting drain mat on our buildings here. So it's a siding with a drain mat. The previous graphic showed stucco with a drain mat. So, this is just an example of how we're doing this, and we're looking at ways to pre-build some of these things in, including our Gen 2 panels, where we're experimenting with plumbing and other ways that we could load the panels up. These aren't commercially available yet, but we're very close to being able to produce these. So there are a lot of different structural panels. Obviously, there's ways to make the connection. We can use welded connections. You're used to welded connections in structural steel. People do use welded connections. With light gauge steel, it's less frequent. Certainly bolted connections and press joining or clinching connections and riveted connections. We're using screw connections. We also have times when we'll use a standard off-the-shelf Simpson or other connectors, CS16, strapping and things like that, right? That'll be part of your product that will come. And what's really nice is that in your LIVIO app, you'll go into the LIVIO app, and we'll cover this in a minute, and you'll see the panel come in. It'll tell you exactly where the connectors are, and you just identify that connector. Okay, that's a 6-inch L bracket with 4 screws on either side. And I need one in the bottom, middle, and top of that corner panel. Okay, that's easy. And I'm going to use this screw. You can identify all the parts. And there's a master list of all the parts that are coming with the panel. And you as the framer are going to provide the screws and the Simpson panels and all the things that are not the framing pieces. If you contract with us to provide the structural steel, we would provide that to you too. So these are examples of the types of connectors that we use now. Again, don't get married to this because, as I just described, this is an evolutionary process. So we are looking for ways always to make connections from panel to panel on the interior of the panel rather than the face of the panel, because it makes the face of the panel smoother and smoother. But this would be a face-to-face panel connection, inside corner here, base either inside the panel-to-panel connection, or maybe blocking to stud connection here, right? Or stud-to-stud connection. And again, inside corner, or long, like a tall block, maybe a joist block to joist connection here. More examples of connections, and sometimes we'll use the Paco screws or some similar material to penetrate the HSS or the structural steel, so that we can make connections from the light gauge steel. So this is an example of a box beam connecting to a structural steel beam. If you're not familiar with doing this, it's really not a big deal. These are self-tapping, large 1/4-inch screws that, applying a pressure with a hammer drill, will go right through that drill. All you have to do is apply, some corrective pressure on that corner bracket to hold it in place until you get that in here, and it honestly goes up like an erector set or a Lego set. It's very straightforward. What you need to be able to do this is have just basic trade knowledge, right? So I wouldn't say no trade knowledge, but basic trade knowledge. If you understand how to put in walls that are plumb and level, and you understand basic trade knowledge of where the other electrical, mechanical, and other systems should be going in, you should be able to handle this framing no problem whatsoever. If you have more familiarity with working with metal flashing, or light gauge metal steel, you're going to do that much better. So the more in-depth trade knowledge you have, the better you'll do, right? So if you're a foreman and you're thinking about who to hire, I would encourage you to bring somebody in with light gauge steel experience. They'll certainly be helpful as a resource. More examples. Again, I don't want to get too specific because the product is always evolving, and each project is specifically engineered. So every project's going to need something different. When we're building a multi-unit, multi-story building, we're going to have different demands than a single family 2-story building that just doesn't have that demand. It's no different than if you were building a wood structure, right? You guys are all familiar with that. So these are examples of the shear panels over and other connectors in here, and ways that we use fasteners to connect to steel columns here. And some of this information will be sent to you when you get your certification. But again, don't get married to it. Each project is project specific, and rely on the LEGO app. Rely on the LIVIO app. Okay, I think that's enough detail of that. Keep going. All right, let's stop and download the LIVIO app if you haven't. And this is a time for you guys to ask questions while we're doing this LIVIO app. So if you have an Android phone, scan this QR code. If you have an Apple phone, scan this QR code.
Otherwise.
Sorry, just the opposite.
So